Hey, it's Sol. It's August 3rd, 2018. This is Warcraft Weekly, and today's episode is brought to you by Underwood Pills. Because when Blizzard puts out a late-night cinematic and it blows up the internet, then you're gonna need some Underwood Pills. Today we are on location. We're having a party. We got some fire behind us, and we have Bob over at, Bob? Give me camera 2. Camera 3. How about here? Okay, well, we're gonna try to find Bob, and in the meantime, let's get to some news, yeah? And let me just tell you right now, there are lots of spoilers that are coming in based on some of the events that happened over just the past couple days. The War of Thorns has reached its conclusion this week, resulting in this thing that you see right behind me here. Just like the Titanic, this was public knowledge. This is stuff that we knew what was going to happen all the way back in freaking November. It's been the how it's happened and the small little details that have been up for debate and argument and apparently hatred. All right, let me stop for a second, and I just want to say to certain people who have not just been critiquing the way the story has been delivered thus far, but has gone as far as attacking Blizzard staff and with these personal attacks, even death threats against certain people, I have one thing to say, and that's f*** you. It's simply messed up. It's uncalled for. At the end of the day, Warcraft is simply a story. It's not something that we live necessarily, unless we're stuck in the game like I sort of am. But in the end, it's all simply a game that we want to enjoy, and I at least appreciate the idea of faction conflict, us versus them, the perceptions of good versus evil, and the debate around that. But when it comes to straight up threatening the people that are creating the story for us, it is very it's anti-good. Critics have been wanting me to call Sylvanas like evil. I would say these people that are threatening people are like the closest, are pretty evil. It's screwed up. It's uncalled for. It's embarrassing, to be honest. This is the kind of behavior that we really should not have in this community, and to those folks, I recommend that you walk away from the game. Maybe don't experience it, and you'll be doing yourself a favor. And with all that negativity out of the way, there's a puppy. Hey! News-wise, there isn't a whole lot going on. There was a recent announcement from Blizzard about a very big problem that they had run into after implementing a hotfix. Apparently, a small number of users, which could still mean anywhere between, hundreds and thousands of players, have suddenly lost all the quests in their quest log, and unfortunately, there is no recourse. You may be able to pick up the quest again, but for anything that you were progressing through, if you have gone through partial progress, unfortunately, you lose that. Hopefully, you folks at home and on the toilet were not affected, but if you were, there is contact information, and I'll try to provide that in a link below. The folks over at Wowhead and Nobu, who I am incredibly not jealous / incredibly jealous of, were able to get a hold of the physical collector's edition for the Battle for Azeroth expansion. That includes the physical copies of 2 mini-novels, Elegy and A Good War, written by Robert Brooks and Christy Golden respectively. I said that I'm jealous because all this week it's been a lot of lore analysis and interpretation and reinterpretation and debate, and I have to admit that I'm feeling a little bit salty that there are certain folks that have access to information and are free to interpret it while others cannot. It's kind of like data mining, but a little bit worse because they have the actual product and not just a partial product. But throwing that shade aside, they got 2 books, they did some analysis on it, and there is not too much new stuff to reveal, but it does help me put together a kind of perspective on how the events of the War of Thorns played out. And it does make me, an admitted Horde cuck, a little bit empathetic as to what's going on in Sylvanas' head as certain events play out. And so, we're going to get to that. So for the rest of this week, we're going to go over the events of the War of Thorns, kind of get it all together and try to get this perspective, as well as talk a little bit more about Old Soldier, a cinematic starring Saurfang and an adopted meme. So if you have not played through the War of Thorns campaign, if you have not seen the Warbringer short with Sylvanas, if you have not seen the Old Soldier video, check out the links below, take a look at them, play through the War of Thorns campaign, come back, and let's chat.
This week we finally learned the truth about Teldrassil.
Wait, what the? Bob, where'd you come from?
Did you not notice me? Maybe you should pad the camera out a little bit. See?
Oh, my bad. Wait, so what happened? I thought you were, like, back there. I was...
Were you worried?
No. Well, anyway, I mean, I'm glad you're here, but then, I mean, you were over there, doing your thing, but so how did you get all the way back here? just like that.
Well, it's a long story. There was time travel and Azeroth, and I met all these crazy people, and there was, a couple of churros.
Did you get me a churro?
Yeah, but I ate it already.
Oh, I suddenly care a lot less that you're back. So how did you get back?
I'll tell you later.
Why later?
Because you had to cover another video reaction yesterday, and that messed with your production time.
Good point. Carry on.
As I was saying, the War of Thorns has reached its awesome conclusion. The internet totally blew up. Sylvanas was even trending on Twitter. And everyone, including their morally gray grandmother, had something to say.
Morally gray my hairy ass.
I love it. Let's go. Also, the salt on the forums has reached new heights. :D.
Adolf Windrunner is the Horde.
Yeah, I love this. Well, that's it. I hope the Alliance destroys the Horde/Legion of Doom.
I really want Sylvanas' head, more than Arthas. I want to play Alliance and kill her with slow burning every Forsaken I find, specifically her closest, and force Horde to kill every Forsaken they find. And her hope dies like she did kill hope for this Night Elf.
You should really visit a therapist, XD. Great video. Sylvanas rules.
Victory for the Dark Lady.
Sylvanas is Divanis.
Burn it! Finally, we get some action in the right direction. This is the world of Warcraft and not the world of Peacecraft, so burn it!
Burn it!
What the hell, LL? It was her after all.
The final taste of the War of Thorns campaign came in the form of the second Warbringers video starring Sylvanas, nicely embedded into the gameplay, so players can't complain about that part. We have our analyses, and the wide opinion is that, Sylvanas is evil, she's, a terrible person, she was triggered, she's petty, yada yada yada. But what I want to do is take the facts and maybe a little bit of headcanon and speculation here, and put it all together, and you folks at home and elsewhere can just decide for yourself just what is going through Sylvanas' head. Now keep in mind that I'm not here to just change minds. That's very much not going to happen, but I'm just going to quickly lay everything out, and here we go. Sylvanas has an idea. She wants to obtain peace her way. Unlike the way that Anduin wanted to do it with a cultural exchange, she wanted to obtain peace by absolute force. She's able to persuade Saurfang into this plan by referring to the event of Stormheim. Again, Greymane's actions were presumably not exactly sanctioned by Anduin, suggesting that Anduin doesn't really have control over his people, even though it's all very fresh. The events of Legion have just recently made Anduin king, so I can see that thread of thought being a little bit dubious. Anduin still just kind of breaking in his shoes. But the Horde makes their move with a couple of objectives in mind. One is to kill a bunch of Night Elves. Two is to kill a notable Night Elf, namely Malfurion Stormrage. And three is to occupy Darnassus. Her idea here was to confuse or disrupt the Alliance when it came to their reactions on what they wanted to do in order to save the Kaldorei, or to not save the Kaldorei. The plan goes well so far. The Horde are able to divert the Alliance to Silithus. Meanwhile, the actual Horde army goes over to Ashenvale and pretty much takes the entire region. Everything seems cool until Sylvanas advances up towards Darkshore, and boom, the Kaldorei death wall is put up. Her full advance is put to a total halt. She's forced to split up her army more than once. One chunk of the army goes with Saurfang and the Thanos. They need to get their way around the Kaldorei death wall. Sylvanas manages to somewhat breach the death wall itself, but only with a limited force. After some fighting and breaking in, here's where we're at. Sylvanas has only a fraction of her army. She's staged in a pretty ragtag outpost. She's deep within enemy territory, their territory, and there's nowhere to retreat to because of that death wall behind her. I'm not sure if Blizzard explained why they named this the War of Thorns, but in my opinion, it describes the Horde advance along with the Night Elf's defense of Darkshore. It's bloody as hell. It's 7 days worth of dirty fighting. It's brutal and messy, and for everyone who's in there, there's losses on all sides. Think of Darkshore as just a big old meat grinder at this point. It isn't until that 7th day, when Saurfang and the Thanos break through, when the Kaldorei death wall breaks down, and the Horde is finally able to push forward. During this second and very short part of the campaign, Sylvanas fights Malfurion and very nearly loses. Saurfang saves Sylvanas, but also lets Malfurion go. So here we are at this point of the Warbringers video, and you've got to consider Sylvanas' state of mind here. Were her objectives in this war met? She killed a bunch of Night Elves, no doubt. Undoubtedly though, she also probably lost a lot of Horde forces. She also failed to kill Malfurion. First by being an idiot and not just doing it her damn self, but also mistakenly putting her faith in Saurfang, who refused to kill him. And at this point, there's still the objective of invading and capturing Darnassus, as well as occupy it. When Sylvanas has this final talk with Dellar and Summermoon, it's not just her words that suddenly trigger Sylvanas. This is more like the capstone or the final straw that pretty much broke Sylvanas' resolve. Plan A simply isn't going to work. The way I see it, Delrin's resolve convinces Sylvanas that if this Night Elf captain with arrows in her back is still going to be defiant to the end, what does that say for the people in Darnassus? Sure, they might just be civilians and children up there, but I think it's safe to say that if you're being occupied by an enemy force, those civilians and children, they're very quickly going to learn to become fighters themselves. So instead of doing something potentially costly like invading or creating a blockade to prevent anyone from coming in and out of Darnassus, which doesn't really happen because, teleporting, Sylvanas will just have to go with a plan B. Now I get this interpretation is totally debatable. The reason why I'm taking this much time to bring it up is that the actual events of the War of Thorns leading up to this Warbringers video, it seems to have been forgotten. And I just want to remind folks that yes, there was in fact a messy, bloody war that was being fought, even though we as players only saw it as a couple of dailies that we mostly ignored because the gear sucked. Lore-wise though, we can fill in the blanks and see that there's 7 days of absolute mayhem and conflict and back and forth between the Night Elves and the Horde, and it resulted in a possibly tired and haggard military commander making what in hindsight is probably totally the wrong call. And this leads to the new and surprise video that came out late last night. Late enough that it pissed me off and messed with my raid night. I did a fresh reaction of it live, and I was corrected numerous times. Who's the punk ass troll kid? Is it the one that Anduin aces with one shots, or is it the one that unfortunately became an internet meme and has no real name? But it's an amazing cinematic and it has a lot of significance, especially if Blizzard is going to go as far as use their opening cinematic team to put this together, rather than the otherwise cool in-game cutscenes or the quality or the style that the Warbringers videos come in. But this video it's touching, it's emotional, it's sad, it's really sad. It's very... Someone said this, I forgot who it was. It's very Saurfang. Aww. Hey, you're still here. Why don't you get on camera?
No, I'm good where I'm at, outside of your reach.
Anyway, while this video is super sad, it touches on a theme that I'm very, very glad that Blizzard is visiting. And it's something I've mentioned a number of times already. It's this struggle that Saurfang is having within himself when it comes to dying with honor or living to fight another day, or to make a difference. Anyway, by the time we get to this cinematic, Saurfang has gone through a lot of stuff. And by now, he's done. He's checking out. He's prepared to die. Going so far as to bid farewell to the memory of his son, and then march off with nothing but a torch and an axe into oblivion. He's more or less stopped by this kid who knows the name of his father but doesn't introduce his own freaking name. And after we see some fantastic lead up with Saurfang butting heads endearingly to his recently killed again son, it's the later half of the cinematic where the most powerful pieces come into play. Saurfang pushes the kid away, telling him to live another day while he marches off to this promise of death. The troll responds by telling Saurfang, no, the Horde is all we have, as in both him and Saurfang. And then Saurfang, with all the guilt and emotion, he lashes out at this kid saying, oh, you think you know me? You think you know what I've seen and what I've done? And finally tells the kid to just, give up and go away. And the kid responds, like you? That's pretty ballsy, man. A kid that has not been in a battle like this in his life, telling High Overlord Saurfang is like, oh, you're being a bitch? Gonna give up? So there's meaning to that, seeing someone new from the new generation standing up to Saurfang, reminding him that what Saurfang is doing isn't just a march to an honorable death, it's pretty much giving up. Earlier, Saurfang put his necklace into a fire, maybe as a ritualistic thing, but I don't know, maybe part of it is because he's feeling ashamed. He might feel ashamed knowing that his son died his warrior's death, and carrying that memento somehow disturbs his sense of honor. Suicide by alliance without much context isn't what I would call glorious. I guess the other way to see it is that people like Saurfang who have that strong of a sense of honor also equally feel that strong of a sense of shame. But the kid finally tells Saurfang words that Saurfang told him earlier. Live another day. Living another day versus dying with honor, or whatever honor that Saurfang still has left. Dying a warrior's death obviously means something to Saurfang. There's nothing to be taken away from that. However, living allows you those additional chances to make a difference. Because if Saurfang did die at that moment before the battle for Azeroth even started, he would have left behind all the crap that he allowed Sylvanas to do. He would have died complicit, because at numerous points he could have prevented this, as his role as High Overlord, as basically the racial leader of the orcs. But as we're going to see in the coming weeks, with the battle for Lordaeron coming very, very soon, the battle for Azeroth expansion starting, and without too much news of what's going on with Saurfang, there hasn't really been any data mined information that has been revealed yet since. I think he's going to be wrestling more and more with himself, trying to figure out what is the best course of action to take. Overall though, I'm finding these little pieces of lore to be like incredibly powerful. Not just because of the quality, or the shock, or the music, or the acting, and all of it has been fantastic. But it's the overall theme that, at least so far, all the actors that are playing their parts here are acting entirely on their own. There's no touch of the old gods or some sort of external influence that's driving the behaviors of these characters. Characters are responding to other characters, and it sounds silly, but after we've seen so much speculation as to whether or not the old gods or some mysterious force is working behind the scenes, it's quite refreshing to see these characters make their own decisions, as well as, more importantly, mistakes. I apologize, folks. I know that today's weekly ended up being just more of an elaboration of opinions that I already have, or just clarifications or new things that we're learning. But even though there wasn't a lot of news, this was still a huge week for Blizzard and the world of Warcraft. We have seen incredibly controversial and powerful events take place. We've been able to explore characters much more deeply than we have in years. And I know that I'm being a little bit cynical here, but the players and fans and critics were going to be hungry for more. It was a great surprise from Blizzard that they released the cinematic, but I'm super excited to see, and I'm kind of sort of hoping that we get to see another one that goes back to maybe an Alliance character such as Gen Greymane, and we get into his head right before the battle. And I feel kind of bad for Ashara. The final Warbringers video is coming next week, and well, after the cinematics and reveals that we've seen here, it feels like the Ashara one unfortunately might be a little bit forgettable. I'm hoping that it's not, though. I'm still looking forward to it, and I hope that it's freaking awesome, and of course, I'm going to be covering that too. So, as a reminder to all you folks, the battle for Azeroth is coming in less than 2 weeks. Next week, those of us who had pre-ordered the expansion will have access to the battle for Lordaeron, and we get to see whatever the heck cool cutscene that takes place right after. If you didn't pre-order though, you're gonna have to wait till next week until the actual launch of the expansion, whether it's on the 13th or the 14th, to play through that, as well as the starting experience for the expansion. As for me, I'm excited. I'm really excited. How about you, Bob? You excited for the expansion?
If it means we can stop talking about lore and just play the damn game already, oh yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's the spirit, baby.
It's Bob.
So that, I think, about wraps it up. It's crazy over the years as I've become someone who's been exposed to different opinions and social media and all that such on Twitter and whatnot. It's crazy seeing the reactions of players and how much Blizzard has won. And by winning, I'm talking about just getting people to talk about lore, even those who are dismissive of the lore or are disagreeing with the way Blizzard's style is with delivering the story. It's been incredibly fascinating seeing this all unfold. So I admit that while Bob was joking about it, it's going to feel a little bit sobering once we just dive into the gameplay, when the lore comes back in its very small snippets, and then we're going from patch to patch again. These past couple of weeks they've been crazy. It's going to be a little bit sad, but I'm going to be eager to see feedback and to give my own feedback when it comes to the quest and experience for both the Horde and Alliance storylines. So this is almost it, everyone. And for those of you who have been coming along for the ride with me so far, I hope you've been having a good time. Regardless of how you feel about things, feel free to start a conversation in a comment below. Tell me how your week was. Tell me if you've been enjoying these past couple weeks of reveals. And as always, I encourage you to like this video, to subscribe, and support the channel the best way you know how, so I can keep giving you more of this. And Bob. and all things Warcraft. We'll see you next week for Ashara, the Battle for Lordaeron, and hopefully just some more lighthearted stuff because it's been really lore heavy and I could do with a little bit of relaxing. So stay tuned for some lighthearted and stupid videos, more stupid than lighthearted, but well, there's a little bit of something to look forward to. So we'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.